Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome once again to the Path You Take podcast, where the path you take is the path you make. I'm joined here once again by dear brother Azim Dahya. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Alaikum salam.
Thank you again for joining in with us and giving us your time. Brother, today we want to kind of focus on small businesses. Why is it important to register a small business if someone's operating in that type of field? And, what are the steps they should take?
Inshallah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity.
Thank you again for giving us your time.
Small businesses. Now, I just want to also make sure that, first of all, we understand what is a small business, and not only what, but make sure people who go into small businesses, they actually understand what they're getting into.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people start small businesses without giving too much thought. So I think the most important thing we need to understand, people need to understand, is that there needs to be a planning process and actually understanding what exactly they're getting into and how are they going to work around all the different challenges they're going to encounter.
Yeah.
And what should they do, before in preparing for it to get into that stage to prevent a lot of heartache and challenges. So the first thing is, of course, in the planning process, number one is usually in Canadian context, if someone has a specific skill, then it's easier to transfer that into a small business. And why I say that is because different from when you come from different countries where you get into any field and you set up a small business, the chances of success are much higher. Whereas here, the cost of, for example, human resources, hiring people is very high. The cost of rental of the property, whatever business is, it's very high. And then in Canadian context, the regulations, especially in BC, regulations are quite stringent.
Yeah.
So having a skill in an area where you've actually worked in that area, you've developed some expertise, and then you start a small business, there's more chance for success. Okay? Again, many businesses start, there's a high percentage that actually don't survive through the first, second, third year. I know people who have succeeded, of course. That's why they hire me as an accountant.
Yeah.
But I also know people who haven't taken professional advice or haven't really done their own homework, and they get into trouble, and then 1-2 years, and some of them lose hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's not very easy. It's not something which you do it, just wake up one day and say, okay, now I'm going to start my own small business.
Yeah. So the question, I guess, is it enough to just register a small business and operate, or are there other avenues they have to take, they have to look into and acknowledge as well?
Yes. So once you have taken up the plan and you want to do a small business, then registration is of course a requirement. And then if you're going to make, for example, more than you expect, you need to forecast at least your few years. What are you going to expect your revenues to be, and what are you going to be your expenses? And that will actually determine how you register, whether you do self-employed, like just do a sole proprietorship or a partnership or incorporation. I think there are quite a number of things that you have to look at, and it's not only the tax issues. People have to understand when they do, whether they incorporate or they do a small business like a sole proprietorship. To get professional advice is highly recommended, because again, it's not from a tax perspective, the liability perspective. Like if you're in a business where there's a lot of liability, then incorporating is more like an insurance thing, right? Because then the liabilities stay with the corporation to some degree.
So correct me if I'm wrong, it kind of separates the owner from the business, correct?
That's correct, yeah. Whereas when you're an unincorporated business, which is self-employed, which is not bad if you're expecting, it's a low risk business. You're expecting income, less than, let's say, net income less than 50,000-60,000 approximately. I'm just giving you rough numbers. Again, everybody's situation will be different.
It varies, yeah.
So again, a professional help is always advisable because they'll put you on track. And then you have to do all the GST, like registration for GST, depending on, again, on your income, PST, if it's applicable. Actually, October, the rules are changing in BC. So many of the fields that were not having PST now are going to be applicable. And PST, there is no, again, depending on the rules come in, but it's not like there's a limit of 30,000 for GST. PST will be probably from the dollar onwards or from a few dollar onwards. So you just have to look at the rules when they come out in October, the new rules. So and then you do WCB. Again, WCB is an important thing. Like if you get hurt, then you need to have WCB so that they cover some of your expenses depending on the type of business. And liability insurance. If you're in some professions, you require liability insurance. And many other things that you have to really consider. If you're doing payroll, then you have to register for your payroll account. And again, understanding when you open up all these accounts, understanding the obligations requirement is very important. Again, seek professional advice if you don't have the time to do your own research. And sometimes sometimes even people do research, it is quite, sometimes here the tax system is quite complex. And it's always good to get, because I've had clients paying, they probably trying to save a few $100 or a few $1,000 of professional fees, but end up paying, 10,000 worth of interest and penalties, just because they didn't remit the GST on time, the payroll deduction on time. The penalties and interests are horrendous. So don't try to save money for your accounting help. I'm not trying to, actually, you don't have to come to me, but I'm just trying to get you the importance of understanding these issues. Because once you start, capital is always limited. And if you don't do things right, and then you got interest, penalties, and all these things you're dealing with, already your capital is not much, and then you lose it in these areas, which is a sad story. And if you do breach into some of these regulations like GST, trust issues, after a few years, CRA can come and close your account, and your business suffers. Like it is tough. So generally, basically, you have to make sure that you do all the right things when you're starting a small business. Now, again, if it's a part-time thing, it's more like a hobby, and you're running a business for a part-time thing, something you're passionate in, you're not really making money off it, you're not expecting to make a lot of money. Now, this is a different conversation. But generally, if you really want to build a small business so that you can really earn a living, it is important. And one other thing, the opportunity cost. People don't think about the opportunity cost, the concept of opportunity. Sorry, I'm diverging.
No. So no, of course.
Okay. The opportunity cost, because if you were to work, or you were to work for someone, or some secure job, let's say you are earning $40,000 a year, right? After all the expenses net, you get $40,000, right? But if you do business, you need to, let's say you earn, if you earn, let's say, nothing at the end of the year, it's not like you've earned nothing. You've actually lost that 40,000, that opportunity to have earned that 40,000. So be mindful of that you go into business, but you have enough savings to support yourself for that 1 or 2 years.
Sacrifices.
Sacrifice. And if you can't, sometimes not worth going into too much debt, especially if it's interest debt. And then you lost that opportunity to earn some other money, and then you have to still maintain your operations. If you have a family, or you have to support yourself, even you get into much bigger debt. So again, if you are trying to earn back a business, and get into a business where there is opportunity in the 2-3 years, okay, you got opportunity cost of, let's say, $40,000 a year. But in 2-3 years, you should be making enough to cover up all these opportunity costs. Because if you were working for the 3 years, you'd earn 120,000. But if you don't raise that much money in, let's say, 3 years, because it takes the first year you lose money, second year you it break even, and then third year is when you start really making money. This is general. I mean, some people in the first year they'll start making money, so that's fine. But most people, it takes at least 3 years, 3 to 5 years to stabilize a business. So you have to be very careful and to know that to do that. So some people start out working full time, building up their capital, starting small, making the mistakes while they're doing part-time business. And then when they reach a certain point, then they, stop working and focus on the business. And of course, professional help will allow you to make that decision much more easily. But just make sure that when you go into business, you are ready to ride the, challenges.
Ride the waves.
Ride the waves. And people think they go into business, it's more flexible, you have to work less. Actually, in business, you work too harder than when you work for someone else. So that's another consideration. If you have a family and you're required to put some time in to look after your kids or do some household chores. Some people might do cooking at home to help the family, the wives out, because they are also working. So again, if you're doing full-time and part-time business, then again, you have to ensure that your other aspect of your life is not really get into trouble, right? Because if you don't take care, then you have marital, social challenges, marital problems and all that stuff. So just be very careful that you have a buy-in from your family also, because it requires sacrifices, and you're prepared for all this stuff. I hope that helps.
No, for sure. I mean, it helps a lot. And kind of touching base on third-party liability insurance as well as WCB. Correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of times people might kind of lose out on potential contracts and jobs just because they don't have that.
That's correct. Yeah, WCB is very important, especially in the trades or construction or real estate development industry. You need WCB number so to get and it protects yourself and the staff. If you get hurt or something on the job, then it's very important. And then there's medical insurance. You have to consider that. EI. Employment insurance, self-employed people can also put in EI. So if their work gets into trouble, then they can use EI, especially if your job is seasonal. Yeah, then that can help. So please take into consideration all these other areas that so that you can mitigate the risks that are out there. At the end of the day, business, you have different types of risks and analysis of those risks, and you try to you can't avoid them, but at least you can mitigate them or lessen them. Yeah. And the more you do that, the chances of success becomes higher. Although at the end of the day, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is for the risk provider, and in Islam we are encouraged to do business. So I do encourage everybody. But just be careful that you have covered all the bases, and for some people, you have to realize you have to also look at your personality. Sometimes business is not for some people. That's why we are all different. And some people, they work for someone because if you're not self-motivated, you can't push yourself to work very hard, and you can't put in the hours that it requires. Yep. If you don't have that type of personality, then you should really reconsider or get yourself a partner that you can really trust. And of course, when you get a partner, then that comes with another slew of issues. You need to have proper agreements in place. You have to make sure that your expectations are met, and you must have an exit strategy out of the partnership.
That was a whole nother conversation. That's different.
I'm not even going to go there today.
Things can get messy sometimes.
That's correct. So again, I encourage people to go into business, And at the end of the day, even sometimes if you don't if you can generate 50, 60,000 of net income in a business, it's technically more valuable than the employment income, because the tax savings are more when you are running a business, because they're more legal write-offs that require anything you use to
Deductibles and stuff.
is deductible there. Whereas in employment, there are very few items that are deductible. So there are pros and cons. But again, if you're not generating the money, then there's nothing to save, right?
Yeah.
There are no taxes to save. So those are the considerations also.
So I guess the main aspects are to first do your homework,
Yes,
reflect, and most importantly, seek professional advice.
that's correct. And one more thing is, do a business you're passionate in.
Yep.
Otherwise,
Serve a purpose.
Yeah. Otherwise, after some time, you'll get tired of working that hard. You'll get burnt out, and then all that effort is gone, right? Because then you'll say you don't want to do it anymore. So yeah, just make sure that you are passionate about the business that you want to deal with. That will make the chance of success increases with patience. But those are just my thoughts. And
Again, thank you so much for your time and for your wisdom and knowledge on the subject. And inshallah, this benefits the viewers, and I know it's benefited myself as well. Getting some deeper insight and always understanding that nothing beats professional advice at the end of the day, and kind of making sure that you cover your loose ends and you don't find yourself in deep trouble later on. Thank you again for hopping on the podcast once again for a second shorter episode, but a lot more information based on the business side of things. So for our viewers, young and old, looking to start a small business, take in this advice, this wisdom, and reflect and make sure you're doing the right thing that's for yourself and your family.
can I make an announcement?
No, of course, yeah.
So Muslim Food Bank is also embarking on, it's developing a program called Aspire Entrepreneurship. It's still under programming stage. It might take several months to develop, but once that is rolled out, that's for the community actually. So it'll hopefully provide some mentorship and guidance and training to set up your own business. So inshallah, once the program rolls out, I hope that some of the viewers can take advantage of that opportunity.
That's another way to kind of take advantage of what's available and get deeper guidance, inshallah.
Thank you.
Thank you again to the viewers for watching, and thank you again, brother, for hopping on the podcast. And inshallah, we've all learned something new, and we'll kind of put that into our lifestyle and make sure that we're doing the right thing for ourselves and for the community. Thank you again for joining in, and hope to see you in 2 weeks, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.